Yes, go ahead.
All right. So welcome to New Mexico Family Advocacy Program's 38th ECHO session. NMFAP is a model of respondent parent representation being implemented in the 13th and 2nd judicial districts that utilizes interdisciplinary teams. I'm getting a little feedback. Maybe everyone can mute. That utilizes interdisciplinary teams of lawyers, social workers, and parent mentors working effectively together to provide quality representation and the advocacy and support families need for reunification or other preferred outcomes in the child welfare system. I'm Andrea Gunderson. I'm one of the lead attorneys, and I'll be the facilitator for today. And today's topic is use of visitation hosts and alternatives to supervised visits. And so if you can all please enter your name and email address in the chat. I see that some of the participants already are doing that. Please remember to do that. And please fill out the post-session survey, which is an integral part of our program's data collection efforts under the federal grant. The survey will take only a few minutes of your time, and Jen will post the link to the survey in the chat box. For today, we have the following presenters. First of all, Cantrell Mosley. She is the Sandoval County Office Manager for CYFD. Stephanie Chavez, the Engagement and Training Manager, and Fostering Connection for the Fostering Connections Bureau, as well as Darlene Dixon, who is a CYFD resource parent. Cantrell Mosley has a bachelor's degree in social work and come this July will have worked 20 years for CYFD. Prior to becoming the COM in Sandoval County, she has worked in Bernalillo County and Sandoval County and in a variety of positions as a PPW supervisor, and client service agent. She also was engaged in the pilot initiative before the NMFAP received the Children's Bureau grant and has been instrumental in the program's success. Stephanie Chavez is the Engagement and Training Manager for the Fostering Connections Bureau. She graduates with her master's in social work in May 2021. She's worked for CYFD Protective Services for 6 years and has been a placement worker, youth transition specialist, and regional training coach. She is one of the co-chairs of the Relative Care Team Work Group, which is working to increase the value of family relationships and maintain family and sibling connections to increase placement stability and improve well-being outcomes of children and families. Darlene Dixon has been a CYFD resource parent since 2017. She has had 10 children in that time. She's assisted CYFD and parents in 3 separate reunification plans. She also opened her home to a youth close to aging out and assisted him in maintaining connections with his family and his employment. Darlene and her husband still support the families who reunified and have maintained friendships with those parents. Darlene was also instrumental in assisting new resource parents in the CYFD mentorship program and co-hosting support groups for foster parents. She was also Sandoval County's Foster Parent of the Year for 2020. So today our learning objectives are fourfold. 1, we are to identify a visitation host and understand the approval process. 2, become familiar with the circle of security and support model. 3, engage families in the visitation host process for successful outcomes. And 4, better understand the perspectives of foster parents. And with that, I will turn it over to Cantrell.
Cantrell's running us.
Hi, yes, my name is Cantrell Mosley, and actually I'm going to say co-host Stephanie is actually going to start us off.
Thanks, Cantrell. Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Chavez, and thanks, Andrea, for introducing me. Today, me and Cantrell will be going over generally what visit hosting is and who a visit host is. We'll also be discussing what the relative care team is, what our work group does, and some of our goals and outcomes. We'll talk about the different relative finding and engagement tools that CYFD Protective Services use. And we will then also be talking about how to identify and support visit host. And Cantrell will go over kind of the process in which we identify and support those individuals, how we engage families through the process and support them in connection and relationship building as their families are working with the department. And then Darlene will give you guys a fresh perspective of visit host, as she was one in the past. The relative care team has been a work group within Protective Services for about 4 years now. Previously, we were 2 separate work groups, one in which we worked with siblings and promoted sibling connection, and the other which was the relative care team. We actually merged recently within the last couple of years because some of the work that we were doing was duplicating, and we really wanted to ensure consistency and promote sustainability. So our team's mission is to increase the value of family relationships and maintain family and sibling connections to increase placement stability and improve well-being outcomes of children and families. Our team charge or our objectives are to implement an improved relative care program through the use of tools, improving our partnerships and relationships with relatives, improving their experience, and providing training to new workers and current workers on all the tools and engagement strategies when working with relatives. We want to improve and identify supports for relative caregivers to improve their experience, create buy-in through the agency and with our stakeholders around relative parents and including relatives in throughout the process. And then we wanted to make sure that we distinguished the difference between relative and sibling, but also remember that sibling work is super important, and we wanted to ensure that sibling connections were still being maintained and promoted throughout our work. So we've been together as a work group, like I said, for about 2 years now on both teams, and we're currently working on implementation and sustainability. So we've identified several tools that we use for identifying relatives or searching for relatives, and then tools that we use to engage relatives. And we're working on making it clear which tools are going to be more successful for our workers and our families, and which feel more supportive of the families as we continue our work. And then making sure that implementation, like training and coaching, are being offered to our workers as throughout the years, right? It doesn't matter if you were brand new and you were trained, you can continue to get coached and supported as you continue to work for the department on engagement strategies and identifying relatives to improve those outcomes for our families.
So when we talk about what visit hosting is, it's a process in which families and fictive kin can help us supervise visits and make it, more comfortable, more organic for our parents and our children. Some of those visit hostings look like grandma, taking kids and meeting mom and dad to do a visit at the zoo, at the pool, at a restaurant, at a park, kind of things. It also could be those relative foster parents or relative resource parents inviting mom and dad into their home, 2 or 3 times a week to eat dinner with the kids, do homework, get them prepared for bed, Sundays going to church with them. So that's what visit hosting could be. People who could be a visit host is someone that the agency and the family agree could oversee a visit. And then this person also has information regarding what the reasons that kids are in custody, special needs of kiddos, and about parents, mainly to ensure safety around things. Okay, so when we talk about how we identify who these visit hosts could be, sorry, I have eye problems and I can't see the little screen. So when we're talking about what kind of things that we utilize to find these, the department has really put a lot of effort into, we're going to call them family finding efforts. So during the initial investigations, people are doing genograms, right? Not just family trees, but asking, you know, what those relationships look like between aunties and grandmas and uncles and cousins to find out who could be that support. We're doing the circle of safety and support. So, you know, finding out who in their circle knows everything about what's going on with them and their kids, finding out who is in the outside circle that may know some stuff, but not everything. And then even identifying people on the outside who are professionals or others who don't know those things. And how do we bring them back together to help this family, right? I think we're going with kids need a village and parents need a village to help raise kids. And so how can we bring their village in? We also have a new tool that the department has been using for about the last year and a half called the Seneca search. It does not search for parents, but will search for relatives. And it's based on the parents' names, not the kids. So it will look for past addresses parents have lived at, you know, people who have last names or first names of parents that are associated with them. It will generate a very long list that we have had, you know, 50 or 60 names on, and we're calling, you know, multiple phone numbers, sending out multiple letters to find relatives for kiddos. Also, we have, we should be getting in the next few months, Ben verified accounts. So it's like true people searches so that we can locate more family and more support for parents, not just finding parents, right? But finding that support that they need. Where is their village and who can that be for these kiddos and these parents? We also really want to, you know, talk about in this visit hosting arena, who are those relatives and fictive kin who say they are unable to be placements, but how else could they support kiddos? When Darlene talks, she may talk about, you know, we had a grandma who would go pick up kiddos and take them to therapy and bring them back to her home because that's what she needed support in. And that's what the kiddo needed support in. And so, you know, grandma said, I can't be a placement for them, but she would have passed every background check, everything about that. So how can we pull those relatives in to support kiddos? We do, when identifying these visit hosts, we do fax checks. So our CPS checks, we do New Mexico courts checks. We do the sex offender registry checks, and then we do check VineLink. We are not going to, we are really going to assess those relatives or those fictive kin that they're giving us. So just because they have something on NM courts does not mean that we would deny them the ability to be a visit host. But it's really assessing that. Just because they've had an investigation doesn't necessarily mean they couldn't be a visit host. It's really just assessing. But we are going to do those things. So in talking to parents or talking to these relatives, it's really telling them, tell us what's going on so that we can kind of mitigate those circumstances. And those things may have excluded them from being a foster parent, right? Or resource parent for these kiddos, but may not rise to that level that they couldn't pick them up or take them to a visit. We also do discuss with our visit hosts, our parents, and our resource parents expectations. You know, when can they do visitations with the kids or family time? Sorry, I'm going to get better at that. Family time with these kids and these parents. When can they have that and how often? We want to talk about what are some of those limits and boundaries in a visit for them. You know, can they go and take kids to the bathroom by themselves? Could they, you know, take them, you know, to the movies or something? What are some of those limits and boundaries that we have? We also want to talk with these visit hosts about what documentation looks like. We all want to provide respondent counsel with good documentation. And so what does that look like for our visit hosts? We will obtain a signed release of information for parents so that we can provide the visit host with information about our case. So ensuring that parents know, and they're usually a part of those discussions, right? If we're going to sit and have this meeting with the visit host, we want parents to be there with us. so that they can hear, here are the limits and boundaries, and here is what all the encouragement that we want to provide of things that you could do. We do ask that our visit hosts do an online training about the signs of abuse and neglect. So that website is on there. We discuss any safety concerns for kiddos, kiddos' needs, what the family strengths and what their interests are. And then that's how we develop our family time schedule. So where could they go? Like I said, we had a kiddo who loved to go to the pool. And so that's what the visit host would do twice a week, is go to the pool. It was free with those passes from the fire department. And so mom and kiddo got to swim. So those are things that we want to talk about with families. Prior to the first visit, we also ensured that all of the department's numbers and SCI numbers and office numbers are provided to the resource parent or to the visit host, so that they can, in case of any emergency, not able to reach the resource parent back, or parents don't show up, that they have somebody that they can call. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that we also, during those meetings, will talk about cultural issues or other things that parents would like to do. In some of those discussions, we've arranged for the visit host to pick kiddo up and take them to a hair salon, and mom and dad meet them there so that kiddos could have their hair done. That's a family time, that's something that you take your own kids to do. Ensuring that visit hosts understand any dietary restrictions, any physical needs kiddos have, that they have car seats, and any needs that they may have if they're transporting those kiddos. We also review the visitation guidelines that the department has, and if the kiddos are in treatment foster care, or they're going on a pass from a residential treatment center with a visit host and parents, that we are providing what the safety plan or crisis plans are that those facilities have. We do like to set a schedule for these to happen about, I would say 60 days, and then we come back and assess, could we increase? Could there be more flexibility in that? So those are things that we do encourage not to do it in the bio home until we're ready for trial home visit, but that doesn't mean that's the same for every case. Also, we would talk about, we've had parents tell us, I can't just keep them out all day. Sometimes that gets expensive, especially if we're doing visits 2 or 3 times a week. So going to grandma's house, going to auntie's house, are those places that they could have some of those family time visits. And then just making sure that they know who to provide that documentation to after the fact.
So we're going to talk a little bit just about 2 of the family engagement, relative engagement and finding tools, Circle of Safety and Support and Seneca. These 2 tools are fairly new to to CYFD. I would say since about 2017 or 18, we started using Safety Organized Practice, which is where Circle of Safety and Support comes from. I apologize. And then Seneca over the last couple of years was introduced to us. So Circle of Safety and Support is more of an engagement tool. It can be used when safety planning. So who are the individuals within your family that you find can provide safety for the children, who are safe for you? Who do your kids go to when they need support? Those types of questions are being asked of our families at the families we work with at investigations, in permanency, but this is also being used all the way through with our young adults that are participating in youth services or fostering connections program. So we're trying to develop and support families and children and youth in developing their safety and support network. And so that's that engagement tool. We are asking families and children and youth about the group of responsible adults in their lives that are willing to care about the child, that are already caring about the children and willing to participate and meet with us as a department and participate in maybe visit hosting or participate in the case. They understand some of the concerns about the harm and danger. They're willing to do something to support the family and create safety for those children. And so those would be the individuals. And I don't have a picture, but you can do some research, or you can even ask the permanency workers, investigators for a visual of what the circle of safety and support looks like. It's literally 4 circles within each other. And the first one is the family or the child. The second circle is actually those immediate individuals that care about the children, that know about the case. We're asking, who are those people you go to when you need support, when you need somebody to watch your kid, when your kid is coming home from school and you're at work and you need them to check on them because you're going to be gone for a period of time. Those would be that immediate circle. The next circles are those individuals that have less connection or less relationship with the family or the children, and but we want to create more relationships. And then that last circle are the providers and those individuals that maybe have been disconnected from the family, but are important to the family, and possibly individuals that could provide some additional support to the family while they're involved with us. And so that's what that looks like. We're asking those questions. We're engaging in conversation. It's a conversation starter. It's about identifying individuals, not just who's grandma, who's grandpa, who's your mom and dad, who's your aunt and uncle, but who are the people that care about you, including fictive kids, neighbors, friends who the kids may call aunt and uncle because they've been friends with the parents for so long. They're individuals that have developed relationships with the family, and that we want to encourage the family to reach out to during this time of need and support. And so those individuals within that first circle, and maybe within the second circle outside of that child or family in the middle, are the individuals we're asking, could you be a visit host? Would you be willing to take the family and create an organic situation in which they have family time, so it doesn't feel uncomfortable with one of us CYFD workers watching the visit and monitoring the situation. So that's what circle of safety and support looks like. And like I said, we're using it from investigations all the way through even fostering connections with our young people. The Seneca search is the actual relative family finding search tool, like Cantrell said. So it is a search engine that gives us information. The information from that search may or may not be relevant to the family. So it can give us previous addresses, phone numbers, names of friends or neighbors, but it may not be relevant to the family right now. So it's important that we use this tool as another conversation starter, and not a tool in which, okay, here is 50 individuals' phone numbers. We're going to call all 50 of these people to ask them about this family. No, we're going to ask the parents and the children about these 50 individuals. Who are they? What relationship do you have with them? What does that look like? Can we involve them in the case? What does that look like? How can they support you? And it helps us with those conversations from the individuals in their current, right, who they currently have relationships with, and those from their past. So it is just a search engine tool, just like the Ben Verified. It gets us started. It gives us some information that maybe we weren't able to gather at the beginning, or even within some conversations with our families. And we're able to now have more conversations about those individuals. So, right, the process is the search and then the engagement, and the conversations that we're having with you right now with our field workers is the engagement. It's not just about, hey, let's check a box off, we're searching for relatives. Yes. No, it's how do we engage them? How do we build those connections? So research shows that children participating in more frequent and or regular time with their parents exhibit more positive outcomes. So stronger attachments, improved well-being, fewer behavioral problems, lower levels of depression, and better adjustments. And so we're engaging relatives and letting them know, like, this is important for the kids, for their family, and to encourage that ongoing connection and support. So we want to continue to connect and develop those relationships, or help with bridging the gap in redeveloping relationships. And we're having those conversations. We're supporting the family in understanding what that development might look like by utilizing these tools and strategies, and encouraging visit hosting, because that could be the bridge to that relationship.
So when we're talking about this, what I would leave you guys with as responding counsel, as FAP social workers or other providers working in our system, is ask those questions. Ask, did a Seneca search get completed? Can you talk with the parent and my client about who you found? Can you talk to me about what they kind of said? What is the support that they can offer my client and the kiddos? We want to really remember that the department is not just looking for placements for kids. We are looking for relatives to support kiddos. Who else can they text from the resource home about, I got an A on my homework? Who could help with transportation to visits or therapy or other, prudent parenting? We want to get kids more involved in sports. And so who can those people be to support there? Who can come to some of those activities at the schools? We want to be building or rebuilding some of those relationships, right? Sometimes we have our parents who have burnt some bridges with their family members, but our point in reunification efforts is, how do we get those family members back with parent to see those changes that they've made, those behavioral changes, and reintroduce those family members back to kiddos so that they have, grandma back in their lives, or auntie back in their lives, or uncles or cousins back in their lives. We are explaining the purpose is to help and grow the family as a whole, but also so when CYFD is out of their home, who are those people they can call? Who is their village and who can support them so that CYFD doesn't come back in, right? And building those things up so that we don't have repeat maltreatment. We really do want to humanize the experience for this family time. And it's really uncomfortable when you have a CYFD person in there monitoring your family time with you and your kids. And so how can we make it, different? It's, for me to take my kids to the zoo with my parents is a normal activity. So can grandma and grandpa be those people to support mom and dad? This is really hard. Raising kids is hard. And so who is that village? And I think that that's something I just want to really leave you with. How do we build that village back up? Who can support transportation and others? And it doesn't always have to be for placement. And I think that that's one thing I want you guys, when talking in IPACs, in talking in pre-perm conferences, in FCMs, it's asking those questions. What more visits can we have? Who can be there during those visits to support mom and dad? Because these aren't just visit hosts to be supervised. Those are also people who teach us how to parent our kids. And so can auntie or can uncle be that extra mentor to our parents? One of the things that next Darlene's going to talk to us, but our visit host doesn't always have to be a relative or fictive kin. We do ask our resource parents, would you mind visit hosting? And we do put some of that mentorship on them as resource parents. Could you support kiddo and parents in being just another person in their village? So we also, if relatives cannot be a placement or cannot be a visit host, we also want to encourage you to identify other ways they can continue to support. And sometimes those bridges have been burned. And so relatives are like, I cannot be a part of that, but I still want to be part of kiddo's life. So can we encourage more phone calls? Can we encourage, auntie to pick them up for cousins' birthday parties or weddings or other family events that families have? Would they be willing to keep them for, a short time for Christmas or, for Mother's Day? Could they take them to see grandma and aunties and mom? Those types of things. So, Darlene, or Steph, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I do have a little one on my lap. He was supposed to be in daycare, but we are in quarantine right now. So forgive the interruptions if they happen. I am Darlene Dixon. As was said before, we have been foster parents since 2017. We've had 10 children and, well, 9 children and a youth come through our home, which I swore would never happen. And I was broken, and I love the kid to death. We still have good connections with all of our kids, actually. We've done this since 2017. When we first got into fostering, we wanted to help make a difference in the lives of anyone that came into our home. And we realized early on that part of that is to connect with parents so that they know we're here to support them in getting their kids to come back home. And we would do whatever we could to help that. So we have engaged in visit hosting ourselves. The very first time was interesting. They've all had their challenges. We were very apprehensive at first because we didn't know what to expect. We were brand new to fostering. We were new to all of this. But we recognized in our little boy that he really needed connection with his parents, especially his dad. But the only way to do that, it got to a point, the only way for that to happen was we would have to go meet with him where he was at in facility, and there wasn't hosts available with the department because it had to be weekend times. So because we saw that, we were able to really connect with both of his parents. We still have connection with them now. I spoke with him a couple weeks ago for his birthday. We haven't got to see him in over a year just because of all the COVID stuff. But so yeah, we've had still connection with all of our kiddos. And I think the biggest thing that helped us feel comfortable with hosting was that we had an icebreaker with all of our parents. And we got to know them, and we got to share our heart with them, and they got to see that we're not just trying to take over parenting your child. We want to support you in parenting your kids. So when we made those connections, those really helped parents to see us differently, because it's like Cantrell was just saying, when they're sitting in a room down at the department and they're being watched by people, they're afraid to breathe wrong. But they could really relax with their kids when we met at the park and we supervised it. We're to be able to relax and really enjoy time with their kids. So there's that. Now, do you have other questions, Cantrell, that you would like me to talk about?
Can you give us some examples of some of the different things that you did with different family members? I know you just said that when parents were in inpatient services that you, so cute, that you guys went to the inpatients. How was that?
At first it was awkward, but as we settled in and Dad was more comfortable getting to know us, and we were able, because of what I do professionally, I'm a preschool director and have all the child development stuff. Dad in this particular case was very resistant to see some potential delays in his son. But he was very, very data oriented person. And so when I could bring him charts and sit with him and explain, this is where he should be, this is where he's at, he got it. And we saw his visits drastically change from just giving him the phone to watch YouTube the entire time to, okay, you can have a few minutes, but then we're going to work on our ABCs, or we're going to color together, and that kind of thing. For that family, that was crucial for Dad to catch that piece, because once he caught it, I know he's telling his side of the story. Once he got that, it made a huge difference for that little kid. So with Mom, we couldn't. we couldn't go to her facility, but we could pick her up and take her to McDonald's or the pool or the park. So we did those type of things with her. We've taken kids. We had a sibling group that we would take. We had registered the older boy for football, and his parents were able, and grandparents and everybody, they were able to come to the football games and just kind of enjoy, like we were just all one big family, enjoying watching this kiddo play football. We've done, really, it's like, that's really kind of parks, zoo, those type of things. But again, it was that connection that we were able to make with the parents that made it so that we still have contact with them. And when they're struggling, even after some of our kiddos have been home for a couple of years, we're still getting text messages or phone calls from them saying, hey, how's it going? I have a question. What would you do in this situation? And it's important that when we're hosting and that we do have to maintain a level of, here's the boundaries for this visit, but it does really become a friendship where they look at you as their friends as opposed to someone keeping their kid from them.
Thanks, Darlene. I'm wondering if you can kind of talk about the time that you mentored a relative as they were transitioning into being a visit host, or maybe even hosting just small sections of like transporting the child to a visit or transporting them to an appointment or something.
Yeah, so we had a sibling group of 3. And with 3 and therapy and school and doctor visits and this and this and this and this, things often stack up really quickly. And we got to a point where we had one that had to be somewhere over here and another one that had to be at a therapy over here. And so we talked with our caseworkers and everybody, and we were able to meet with the family and come up with a plan where Auntie and Grandma would take turns picking up the older child from school and getting him to therapy, and then to his family visit after that. I would meet whoever was picking up that day at the family visit with the other 2 kids, and then they could do their visit that way. Really, the mentoring part was just working alongside them, saying, this is how we do it. We know there are certain factors that the kiddos can't be, mom and dad can't necessarily pick up and transport them or whatnot. But it helped build the bond between Auntie and Grandma with the kids when they were able to do that. And the kids quickly learned the schedule and would often say, so tomorrow Grandma's picking me up or Auntie's picking me up, right? And all. So it was very organic and very, very helpful to me, actually.
Yeah, thanks, Darlene. Can you also talk a little bit about what supports the department gave you as you were doing some of the visit hosting? I know you talked a little bit about how you really helped out, right? On a Saturday when we were struggling to do family time and have our workers out there, you sat in. What did we do to support you?
So the icebreakers, that's huge. And then after icebreakers, when we kind of get to know parents and they get to see who we are, FCMs really helped, because that's where we were able to say, okay, this is the plan. We're going to, the Dixons are going to host and meet you at McDonald's, but here's the boundaries. And if this or this happens, you need to know at any point. They can intervene and say, we're done, and leave. And just, we had a lot of support from all of our teams over the years with helping us set boundaries. And when things were a little, one time I had a mom that she would take her son's shoes off every time we got to wherever we were going and examine his toenails to see if his toenails had been clipped. And then she would complain to the department that his toenails hadn't been clipped. So we worked together and came up with a plan that when we go for visits, we bring the clippers, and she's more than happy or more than welcome to help us with that part of it. The problem was that I don't know exactly why he was so resistant, but it was a huge fight, and he was a strong kid. And at night I would try and sneak in his room and clip his toenails while he was sleeping. Sometimes it worked, most of the time it did not. So when she realized that it was such a big hassle for him and that he didn't like it so much, she would lay back on that. But it was just open communication with the department. If we, I actually had a couple times where something would come up for us personally and we weren't able to keep the visit or whatever, and that's where we were allowed to go ahead and call Auntie and say, hey, there's a visit today, can you take that for us, because this has come up. Just they've supported us in a lot of ways. Communication has been really great with the department, because if we were having an issue, we just had to bring that up and they would take care of that. So
Thanks, Darlene. I guess the only other question I have based on our panel of questions or our list of questions is any suggestions around for even the community partners here, respondent attorneys, around engaging you as a visit host, engaging the family in visit host, this idea of visit hosting that you might have?
I think the more support that foster parents and other family members can have is knowing that they are part of the village, and that it is crucial for, that is part of our philosophy of fostering, is that we want those connections to be strong. And the hope is that every kid returns home. But if not, we have, if the kids can't go home, we still have a way to connect them to their family, biological family, as they grow. I think that just supporting your whoever you have hosting, and just letting them know that you're there to help make that a good experience for them and for the kids. And then if it's working, it's great. If it's not working, to be able to set up the next team to kickoff thing. You've got your punting team that comes in because the offense couldn't quite get all the way down the field. So it's the same sort of thing, and that's where the village piece comes in, I think, is that it does take all of us, and what works for us may not work for other foster parents or other family members or whatever, but finding what works for the sake of the kids is what needs to happen.
Thank you so much, Darlene. Cantrell, did you have any other questions? Did we want to open it up to other people?
Yeah, if anybody else has any questions, either for Darlene or Stephanie or myself, but I just really do want to encourage everybody that this is, the department is supporting visit hosting. The department has given training to every permanency planning worker, every investigator, every placement worker. And so they all are aware of visit hosting, and they have others that they can reach out to gather more information should we need it. And so I encourage you, right? I think my words are, I don't get better until someone makes me. So if respondent council or GALs or community providers or FAP social workers or parents ask me, hey, can we look at visit hosting? I may not remember, or I may have not remembered to even ask those questions. And so we are asking you guys to push us in that, to remind us to inquire about that and, encourage those visit hosting opportunities. I think this is another work smarter, not harder moment. This is not Darlene took an extra transport that my CSA or myself as the worker didn't have to do. And it gave kiddo time with his grandma and with his auntie in the car, normal times. And so I didn't have to work as hard to get that kiddo to therapy, and other people got to benefit from that. And so thinking about that, my foster parent had an opportunity to kind of, oh, somebody else can take care of this. I can concentrate on this other kiddo and getting them places. So those were, encouragement and reasons why I would encourage all workers to, remember about visit hosting, encourage family engagement. It took some burden off me as the permanency worker, but supported the kiddo and their connections and their engagement with their family. So not that I got off easy, but that we supported the family.
I would say it also encourages that ongoing role modeling of, hey, call the auntie, right? She's been helping out with transporting to these different appointments because she has some time. Can you, when kids go home, still use her as that resource? What does that look like? So that role modeling and supporting and encouraging them to build those, like Cantrell said, relationships and habits, so that when we're gone, when we're not intervening in the case anymore, in the family's life anymore, they have those relationships and they have those individuals and they know who they can trust. And we're supporting some of that. Does anybody have any questions for Darlene, myself, or Cantrell?
So maybe I missed it, but are you also talking about doing sandwich visits? Can you talk about that? You know what those are, right? Sandwich visits where, there's a supervised exchange on either end, but the parent is actually spending time alone with the kids, like maybe like at the McDonald's or at the pool or whatever it is.
So absolutely. So I think the department right now in general is looking at how can we make, can you hear me? Can make visits more organic, and that could include increasing those visits or increasing or decreasing the supervision of those visits. So sandwich visits where you're checking in. Could mom pick up kiddo from the resource parent or pick up the kiddo from school and take them for a couple hours and return them to resource parent? Or, if it's the beginning of a case, could it be something that happens at the office? Could mom come pick up kiddo from the office? The worker gets to, talk about the exchange and check in with everybody before. And could mom walk to McDonald's or walk to a park close to us and then come back? Absolutely, those are things. And visit hosts can support them, or relatives can support that, or resource parents can support that in meeting parents places if transportation is an issue, or if that's just how we kind of set it up. Could mom meet at Dion's for dinner and take the kids down the street? Those kind of parks and stuff are really close in Albuquerque and Rio Rancho, and that's where we're at. But I'm sure that that's places, other places as well.
I would also want to say there is a relative foster parent that participates on the relative care team that talks a little bit about being the visit host as well. So she essentially had visits or family time at her house because it made things a little bit easier for the parents, right? They could go to her house. She also talked about some of the struggles with some of that, right? Learning to create, kind of like Darlene said, those boundaries and expectations, where previously she was the cool auntie, the kids got to do X, Y, and Z. Now she's the auntie that is also their relative foster parent, and she has to set up boundaries. And so she talks a little bit about that, what that looked like, but how much of a opportunity it was for the family to create that relationship and to support those different visits, right? So mom and dad could pick up the kids from her house and take them to have family time somewhere and then come back, or have family time there while they were doing other things, and it was easier for the family, and it was a little bit more comfortable.
So Stephanie, there's a question in the chat. Before I get to that, I'll just let everyone know that it's 12:51. If you do need to get off at 1, you can go ahead and jump off. Please remember to do the survey. We will keep going until 1:15. But Stephanie, the question in the chat asking about a video that is needing to be watched, I'm assuming by the visit host. And what if the visit host is unable to view it? Can they still be the host?
I'll take that, Steph. So the video is actually something that we provide to our public school system that New Mexico PED does on how to recognize the signs of abuse and neglect. So that could also be a conversation with the worker, right? You know, let me do a one-on-one kind of training with you about some things that we need to ensure you know. And it's mainly about if kiddos are withdrawing from parents, how can you engage that conversation? Or, you know, if mom's making promises, how can you engage mom to make different choices in words? And so that you can encourage her on how do we keep those promises for the next visit so your relationship with kiddo continues to be good. But that's what that video is. It is a how to identify abuse and neglect in kids. And it is actually, I have the link on what we provide to visit hosts when we do it. And if they tell me, no, I absolutely cannot do that, then we sit and have a one-on-one conversation, and any worker could do that with them. Is that helpful?
Yes, that was helpful. Where do we find the video?
I just put it in the chat. So we will also be providing you all with a copy, PDF copy of our presentation, our PowerPoint, and it is also linked in that PDF. So we'll send that to you all. But this is the website that everybody uses to provide information about you know, identifying abuse and neglect for our visit hosts. And this is the same link that we present to our staff when we've trained on visit hosting, and the process in which they identify and then support the relatives, foster parents, or kin. Are there any other questions for us?
I had a question about the Seneca search. I had a case where the parents gave a bunch of names of family members for placement or visit host, whatever, for the department to use. And they also did a Seneca search. So is that something that we should be seeing in every case, where even if the department is getting a lot of feedback from parents about family, that you're still going to be doing a Seneca search?
I think that's case by case.
Okay.
Andrea, I would say, so we pay for individual Seneca search. So if I have parents or I have relatives who have provided me a lot of different names, and I'm still talking with relatives and I'm still hearing about other people, I don't necessarily need to go search more people out. I'm going to continue to engage those relatives. And if more people show up, I'm going to engage them too. It's for those cases where we don't have that many, or where parents tell us, I don't have support, I'm by myself, or relatives live mostly out of state. And so how can I engage more? Can we look and see if there's anybody here for you? Those are those times. But I would say that some counties and some supervisors are saying, I just want to get it done because I want to have that list in here forever for that child, for that family. If we get down the road and some changes in this case need to be made, I would like to have that in hand for this family. So I think it's case by case. And we should be documenting on all of our court reports, right? Again, here's the how do you hold me accountable as the permanency worker. On our court reports, it has a section in there about who else has the child visited, what part of prudent parenting you have, who have you identified as relatives to support this child. So those are great areas to ask those questions to workers about, hey, what have you done? And a great place for us as CYFD to put that information so you have it and who we have worked with.
as a foster parent, I would say if you guys could really encourage your parents to get to know their kids' parents, it's so important, so valuable, even long after the kiddos go home, because that's a connection for the kids where they had, you know, such a large group of people that showed how much they cared for them, that they will carry with them for a very long time. So the more that you can encourage and support foster parents, if there's not relatives that can do that kind of thing, I think is crucial for our kiddos.
No, I can find a new link if it's not working, which is weird because that's the PED link, I think. But again, I think it's conversations with our families to identify what support they need during those visits and what areas. I'm sorry, this phone doesn't stop dinging all day long about what those look like. He looks just, oh, he looks like his brother.
Cantrell, I thought it was my phone. I kept looking at it for like 5 minutes.
You know, I think a challenge that at least respondent attorneys face a lot is the resource parents not being resource parents, but more a little bit afraid of the bio parents. And so I love this idea, and I've seen it happen in a couple of my cases, but more often than not, there's such a rift between foster parents and respondents and that relationship. So I guess I don't really have a question on that. It's more of an observation and something that we're going to have to continue to work on and make that happen. And so I guess I do have a question maybe to Darlene, and how can we as attorneys for the bio parents help create that relationship or help the resource parents feel more comfortable to have that relationship with the bio parents?
I think one of the biggest things for us was the icebreaker, and I know I keep saying that, but it really was, because we got a chance to sit with the parents and hear what they were looking for, you know, what kind of care. Does my son need his stuff that he slept with all the time, because I can bring that and get it to him? Or me asking, you know, we had a kiddo that for the first 24 hours he was with us, he didn't eat anything. He was nonverbal. And we tried all the, you know, the fun kid stuff that every kid eats, and he wouldn't do it. And we were driving down the road, about 24 hours after he came, and he goes, McDonald's. And so we pulled into McDonald's and we bought every kid meal possible because we weren't sure which one he would eat. But if we'd had a chance to have an icebreaker, you know, before that, and obviously that's really soon to have an icebreaker because it was 24 hours he came, but we would have known that he loves hamburgers, you know. Just having time for your foster parents and your biological parents to connect and kind of get to know the kiddo. That's a really easy one. Every parent loves to talk about their kids. So that's a really easy place to start. And then just let it, you know, as the attorneys for the parents and whatnot, I think just really encouraging your parents to engage, being able to look past why the kids are in custody and see their parents as humans who do want the best for their kids. They just don't know how to do that maybe. Really does change your mindset in, okay, how can we help these kids to the best of our ability?
Thank you, Darlene. So if anyone else has other questions, I know this group is not a quiet group.
Yeah, I have more of a comment. I think this is the first time I've ever heard a foster parent speak like Arlene did. This is like a ray of sun coming through 2 miles of clouds, okay? So for 17 years I've been doing this. That makes me old, competent, or incompetent. I'm not sure which, but this is the deal. I, for years, have been asking, hey, can my clients talk to the foster parents? I mean, I'm always sneaking up to the foster parents in the courtroom and saying, hey, if we do a relinquishment, what are you thinking about, adoptive placements, about contact with the parents if they're in control, yada, da, da. And many times, and I'm not talking about you, Cantrell, I'm just saying many times over the years, contact with the foster parent has been discouraged because of a few times that parents have been feisty, to say the least. So this movement that's happening now is a great movement, but I would say it's fairly fresh and fairly new, and I think it's a great thing because I think it helps all the way around, whether reunification happens or not. Even if reunification doesn't happen, let's just say, still the parents, from how you're talking, Darlene, and maybe you better get paid to be a mentor because I've never heard anything like this in my life. So, I think all the way around, the way you're addressing this, it's sort of visionary to me. It helps the parents no matter how the dice fall, which has always been my position. I mean, maybe I'm too honest, but I like to put things out there on the table as we march along through the case. And I think basically I can't re-articulate what you said. It was stated just wonderfully. So I just wanted to tag along with what Andrea said, which was really on point as well, and just tell you my, centuries of experience. So thank you very much.
So I think that tells me is you, as respondent counsel at the IPACs, asked, did an icebreaker occur? That is part of our policy and should be occurring. It should be occurring from foster home to foster home, from bio home to foster home, and it should even occur between foster parents when kiddos go home. It doesn't have to be super formal. It could be a phone call. It could be the worker and the foster parent when we drop kiddos off, calling mom and them. It could be in any manner, but we also just got what are the pigs? What does that stand for again? Performance guide, improvement guide on icebreakers. And so, we all have those.
Yeah,
so encourage it.
I do agree about this business if it takes a village. I mean, I even think if there's parents with tons of problems, that children should really have access to all their parents. I mean, the world is not a perfect place and everybody's traumatized, the respondent attorneys, the kids. I mean, this is sort of a traumatizing practice. So maybe I'm too global here, but I believe in all of this contact. I think it all eventually is therapeutic to rebuild. So I'm all for parents and foster parents and da-da-da, but you've known me forever, Cantrell, so.
I
I have a question, or maybe I missed it earlier, but like how do we maintain those boundaries for the visit hosts? And because sometimes a lot of the families, they know what's going on, what's been going on, and they just feel like it's not their place to step in, to say anything. And like this is a great idea, but in a way it also makes me worry because like, what if like this family member on paper looks well, says that they're going to do well, but then like they allow parents to do something that they're not at that stage to do yet with their case. Like creating those boundaries and keeping track.
I think we're going to have to learn to trust our families. And we're going to have to learn to put some stuff out there that doesn't always feel comfortable right away. Again, I've been here for 20 years and I think that I've had those, thoughts in the back of my head or those little pieces in my stomach that make me worry. But that's not been things that have happened. And when we do give power to our relatives and we support them, right? They have more support to say, this isn't okay. When we weren't involved, they would say that, and then mom would blow up or, something would happen, or they wouldn't get to see their kids for a while. But if we're there supporting them, then it doesn't really happen. And I have to say that parents are more respectful in these cases. If you're giving them a little piece, parents are more respectful about, visit host and minding those limits and those boundaries. I think it's us as the department putting a little out there to trust families in keeping kids safe and supporting those relationships. They're begging us for it, and we need to provide that.
I know every case is different. Every family is different. Some people are more persistent than others, and just like you give them an inch and they take a mile, and some really, really, this is all they want. They want that connection. They want the support. They want the department to listen and just know that we're there to help them, because a lot of the times, they hear CYFD and they just hate us without even knowing what we're actually there for. But just like in way up northern New Mexico, like I just feel like it really is a community or a village that raises these kids. A lot of our kids are with grandparents, with extended family, but also like it is important how I don't remember her name. Mentioned about the resource parents and the birth parents, maintaining that relationship, and them knowing that the resource parents are there to take care of their kids and they're a support as well. But then I go back to the boundaries, because we tried that with a case, and like the birth parents just took it way out of control. They were like parking outside of the resource family's home, constantly calling. So that like had to come to an end. And I think the resource family ended up choosing to not keep the child because of, the persistence of the bio parents.
I also think I wanna just kind of jump in and say a little bit of what Cantrell talks about and what we talk about in training is that partnership. So in the training that we offer to workers, we do encourage a discussion between the visit host, the parents, and the worker. And that discussion, you're having a partnered, collaborative discussion around those boundaries and expectations, and then around what happens when something or someone crosses the line. How do we support the visit host? How do we support the family? What does that look like? And then those discussions don't have to have one and done. They can continue to happen. So one of the things that one of our other panelists talk about is having that ongoing discussion afterwards. And I think Darlene has talked about this too in other trainings is, okay, this is a situation that came up. I'm talking to the permanency worker about, what had happened. And we're talking and strategizing around how do we support the family? How do we continue to support that visit or that family time? And we're bringing the parents in and we're having those conversations. So it's all around that building of interdependent relationships, relationship building, and partnership. And when we start thinking of it in that way, those expectations are set, at the beginning and then revised as we move forward. And those boundaries aren't always crossed. I mean, everybody is, we're all human here, so we're going to sometimes step over the line. We're going to push boundaries a little bit, but I think it's that ongoing relationship development that we need to continue to work on. And this is one of the ways in which we do that. This is one of the ways in which we're encouraging relatives to participate in the case, that we're asking families and parents to identify those individuals so that they have that ongoing relationship. And we're helping with that. I mean, not everybody's going to trust us. I mean, we are the department. It is, a lot of times there has been, lots of pushback. There's been arguments around whether or not something should happen. And so it's that ongoing relationship development and mending those relationships as well, because some of our families have encountered us multiple times over and over again. And so how do we change their perception, and how do we change that relationship so that they feel comfortable knowing that we trust them, just like Cantrell said. So yeah, definitely hear your concerns around some of that. But we also, if you are Francine, worker for the department, we have trainer coaches, and they are on board around working with field workers on how do they engage parents, how do they engage relatives, how do they encourage and support visit hosting. And that's one of the sustainability piece that the relative care team is working on. We're working with our workforce development division to really encourage and promote support for our families. And sometimes that means doing some self-reflection and taking a step back and working with a coach to say, hey, how do I help do this? Because it works with one family, but it's not working with the other. And where can we make some changes?
Thank you for explaining it that way. And I think those, and I didn't want to, and I'm sorry if I made it sound like I don't trust the families at all, because that is definitely not the case. This line of work is all about like relationship building. Like I was mentioning, we're the department where they see the car and they just think the worst of us, not even knowing what our real intention is. So like the trainings that you mentioned, we just go through our regional trainer coaches, or are these trainings offered like in a setting like this, or?
Yeah, so we've trained visit hosts last year. We trained, I think, 6 different trainings to all protective service workers. We're working on ongoing implementation of this training and it's a little bit more detailed, right? It has the specifics to what is the process for identifying and supporting visit hosts. But that training will be implementing ongoing. And then we've worked with the trainer coaches to help with what does that look like with engaging relatives, that engagement piece? Like you're working one-on-one with the trainer coaches on that engagement, so that you can then recommend visit hosting. You can then identify more relatives to participate in the cases and support the family. So yes, you can reach out to me or Cantrell, and we can talk about what that looks like for you and your region. And then you can also reach out to the trainer coaches in your region to get additional coaching support.
Thanks, Stephanie. And thank you, Stephanie, Cantrell, Darlene. I think we're all much more hopeful, and we will all try hard to kind of push the department to use visit hosting and all of what you've taught us today. So we're gonna be wrapping up. I think Stephanie and Cantrell put their information in the chat if anyone has follow-up questions or ideas that they want to bounce off of them. But please remember to complete the post-session survey. Jen put that in the chat a couple of times. And then our next NMFAP Echo Didactic session will be on May 11th, 2021. And the topic will be the state of child welfare in New Mexico legislative updates. So that'll be pretty interesting. Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you, bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Darlene. Thanks, Cantrell.